Hi everyone, good morning. Today is 26th of July and welcome to the Hindu newspaper analysis. So guys, in the today's video, we are going to discuss the entire analysis of the Hindu newspaper as well as we are going to see the background and the way forward into the relevant issues. Moreover guys, you can download the explainer PDF that I'm going to use here from the Telegram channel, and the link for the Telegram channel has been given in the description box. Now, let's start with the today's newspaper analysis. But before that, let's take the overview of the entire newspaper so that we can understand that which articles are relevant for our examination. Now, here we have the page number 1, and here we can see that formally India got the new president, Miss Draupadi Murmu. Okay, so this is a very historical thing that has happened. So the present president belongs to the tribal community. Okay, which reflects the importance that the government is giving to the marginalized sections of the society. Okay, however, you don't need to go too much into this particular article. Much substance has not been carried in this. Fine. Myanmar executes political prisoners. So guys, here we can see that the military regime is going on to the Myanmar, and there have been a lot of allegations about the human right violations that is going on, and in this particular direction the same thing is going on. Now guys, when we talk about the Myanmar, India had not taken a kind of a very stern stand against the Myanmar because of the Myanmar's closeness with the China. But guys, now as this political prisoners execution has happened, India, in order to uphold the democratic principles into the regions, need to act. Fine. However, you don't need to go into this particular article, the details, etc., which, okay, who got killed and all these things are not important. Then moving on. Okay, no bill to stop attacks onto the hospitals. We are going to see this particular article in the detail. Fine, what is there? Then Polish men arrested for sailing in Sri Lanka. Nothing is important in this particular article. Then guys, we reach to the city section. Into the city section, the regional issues, etc., has been given. However, UPSC related substance is not there. Contact of monkeypox has no symptoms. So one case that came about that they are discussing, not relevant for the examination. Then guys, the political issues, advertisements, etc., has been given. Moving on, and then we reach to the editorial page, and on the editorial page, the first article, the global order caught up in a swirl of chaos. We'll see that what this article is talking about, some changes into the global dynamics. Then reform bill law make the right diagnosis first. We'll see this particular article. Learning lessons. So guys, this particular article is talking about that the monkeypox cases are now, India had seen the confirmed 4 cases of the monkeypox. So we need to make sure that from the very start we are responding, and basically now they're talking about how many cases came in the world, which countries are seeing so many of the cases. Fine. Now see this particular thing. Yes, basically this monkeypox article is coming, and even we have discussed this entire issue, that what this virus is all about, how it manifests, and what India needs to do. Now every day the articles are not important because this particular thing will evolve a lot. Okay, so therefore every day, day-to-day development you don't need to see. Then the golden arm. So guys, this article talks about the recent silver medal that has been won by the Neeraj Chopra. Okay, so the article is discussing about that one. Then the backsliding onto the climate action. We'll see this article what it is talking about. No room for logophobia. So guys, this particular article talks about recently what has happened. Basically the parliament released a list of unparliamentary words and all those kind of things. Fine. A case moving at snail's pace. Okay, then guys, this is a state of the play article. Now the state of the play article pertains to one of a state and their political issue or some regional issue that is going on. Then guys, the text and the context page. Now on the text and the context page, the private sector boost in India's space industry, a very very good article with respect to the GS paper number 3. We'll see it. Then again, the arrest and the bail reform, this article is talking about. We'll see this one. Then studying menstrual disturbance post COVID-19 vaccination. Now guys, with respect to the UPSC exam, the article is not that much relevant. Fine. Then moving on, after that on to the page number 10. Fine, the political issues, etc., has been discussed. Fine, nothing is relevant in this particular line, you don't need to go there. Then guys, the country society needs to come before ideology, Modi tells the opposition. So prime minister has appealed that we need to keep everything aside, and the national and the societal interest is the most important thing. Then after that, the Supreme Court Collegium recommends 35 names for the judges in the 6 high courts. So guys, as we know that the basically the collegium is responsible for selecting the members of the judiciary into the Supreme Court as well as High Court. So now they have suggested the names. Now this is very important because we have seen that right now the vacancies into the High Court is around 20%, and therefore filling these vacancies is very much important. Now you don't need to go into this particular article to see that okay, who all have been recommended. Fine. Then moving on, stopping Zubair from tweeting would be same as gag order. Okay, so guys, basically the alt news co-founder recently got arrested because of some tweets that he had made. Then he got released, and as he was released, there was basically a kind of a it was asked to from the Supreme Court that he should be banned from tweeting and all these kind of things. Supreme Court had said that no, it is a violation of freedom of speech and expression. It will be like of a gag order. Gag order is something which bans you from expressing yourself. Such kind of thing cannot be allowed. Fine. Then moving on, eloquence of tribal legacy concerns for India's daughter. So guys, it is talking about the recent president who has taken the oath. Then guys, after that, moving on, seating arrangement, oath ceremony come under fire, political article not at all important. Then moving on in this particular direction. Okay. Then guys, after that, here 8 killed in Purvanchal Express, monkeypox virus has evolved. Fine, please leave these articles, not important for the examination. Very hairline details etc. they are talking about, which is a tend to change. Medical test for pilot license recognized trans person. We'll see this particular article. Okay. Then guys, further moving on, DGCA's grounds 10 spice jet planes. Okay. Now fine, no need to go in this details of this article that okay, which airlines, which planes have been grounded. Just you need to see that basically what we find that basically nowadays the aviation accidents, aviation mishaps are increasing, and into the past few weeks a multiple of mishaps in the aviation industry has happened, spanning all the major airliners. So DGCA really needs to ramp up the surveillance onto the upkeep of the aircrafts. Fine. Then moving on. After that, the world page, she tightens the security grip ahead of the third term. Sunak talks tough on China. So guys, the evolutionary world affairs issues are going on. Then we come to the business page, corporate news, not at all important for our examination. Fine. So these are guys about the issues here, and then we have the sports page. So okay, now let's take all the relevant articles one by one in the detail. Now starting up guys, so we start our every class with the GS quotation, where we take the quote particularly with respect to the quotations which could be important for our GS papers. So today we are going to take quotation from the Kofi Annan. Fine. Now basically Kofi Annan, the former United Nations Secretary General, he says that literacy is a bridge from misery to hope. Literacy is a bridge from misery to hope. So literacy has been equated as an enabling condition which can emancipate the people from many of the social, economical and many of such injustices that have been there. So literacy is not just about literacy is just not a political right, rather literacy is a human right because it is an enabling condition from emancipating the people. So guys, we can use this particular idea in GS paper number 2, issues related to education, GS paper number 4 as well as in essay. Fine. So let's now take the first article. So the first article we have taken is from the page number 1, no bill to stop attacks on the hospital. Now this particular article we can use with respect to the GS paper number 2, reforms in the health sector, GS paper number 2, issues of health sector. Okay, health sector issues. Now before going in this particular article guys, I would like to discuss some of the background first, and then we are going to enter in this particular article. So basically we have seen this particular thing that over the years many of the people, they have attacked the hospitals, they have attacked the doctors on their duty if the doctors show little bit of apathy, or if the doctors were not able to intervene in a constructive manner. If a person has lost their loved one, they will be releasing their anguish onto the hospitals, onto the doctors. So violence against them has been on rise. And in this particular direction guys, this thing is to be tackled. Why it is to be tackled? Because if such violence onto the doctors will be met, then many of the doctors will not be coming forward to do their duty, and this particular thing will lead to many set of problems. So there have been the demand from so many of the years that such kind of conduct against the doctors needed to be controlled. So therefore guys, what happened in 2019 there was a bill that got introduced. What was the name of the bill? Bill was called as the Healthcare Services Personal and Clinical Establishments Bill 2019. Now, this particular bill had many of the provisions with respect to controlling the violence against the doctors. Now, this particular bill provided that it aimed to address two things. Number one, it aimed to address the violence against the healthcare workers, doctors, paramedic staffs, and second, it aims to penalize the damage that have been made to the clinical establishments, destructions that are done into the hospitals. Now it was provided that if any case of violence or if any case of destruction into the damage in the hospital will be there, then that particular case will be investigated by an officer not below the rank of the deputy superintendent of police, DSP. Second, it has been provided that all such kind of an offenses are cognizable and non-bailable. Now, what do we mean by cognizable? Cognizable means that the police officer can arrest the people without the warrant. Okay, he himself can take the cognizance and can arrest the people. And second is non-bailable. Non-bailable means that if the bail is needed, it has to be taken from the court. Okay, so non-bailable, the bail will be given. Okay, but from the court. Then the next provision which comes here is that basically if the person who has done some violence or some kind of a damage into the hospital, then that person has to pay the compensation also. So compensation twice the fair market value of the damaged property is to be given. Let's say that you have done damage of 50,000 rupees, then 1 lakh rupees compensation is to be given. So this is to deter the people from damaging the hospital, their infrastructure, etc. And then if any hurt has been done to the doctor or some paramedic staff, then the fine from 1 lakh to 5 lakh rupees is to be paid. Moreover, guys, it has been provided that if these fines and the penalties are not paid by the people, then the money will be recovered from the Revenue Recoveries Act 1890. Under that, what money is coming, the proceeds that are coming from arrears, from there this particular money will be recovered. But in the end of the day, the doctors and the hospitals will be paid off. So this is something that this bill was there, which was brought to address such kind of issues. Fine. Now guys, what has happened? Basically, the monsoon session as it is going on, government has indicated that now we are not going to introduce this particular bill. Why we are not going to introduce this particular bill? You need to understand that logic also. So basically, when this COVID-19 pandemic started, then guys, actually in this COVID-19 pandemic, whenever the pandemics are there, we already had one particular act, that is the Epidemic Disease Act of 1897. Now this particular act was even used to pass many of the orders during this particular pandemic. Now when this pandemic was going on, there was an ordinance that was introduced by the government, fine, under this Epidemic Disease Act, and this particular ordinance proposed that any violence on the health workers who are treating the COVID-19 patient, it will be a non-bailable offense. So the government says that as we brought the ordinance under the Epidemic Disease Act, already we have made this as a punishable offense if some health worker is being attacked. So why there is a need to bring this particular new law? There is no need, because already we have brought an ordinance for the same thing. But there is one problem. What is the problem? This particular ordinance that was brought, it gave protection only to those health workers who are involved into the COVID-19 treatment or who are onto the COVID duty. What about the other doctors? What about the other paramedic staffs dealing with other kind of in different clinical settings? So for that, this particular bill was needed. Now guys, if there is some kind of an issue onto the health sector, if there is an issue onto the attacks onto the doctors, etc. comes, then in your way forward, you can suggest this particular bill and their provisions that it should be brought by the government. Fine. So this is as how we are going to use it. That is all about this article. And now let's move to the next article. Now, only 4 states adopt the model tenancy law. Okay, so guys, basically what happened, basically last year 2021 government came out with this model tenancy law, which was to be adopted by the state governments. Fine, but it has not been adopted. So this is a reply that has been given by the government. Now this particular article per se is not containing any substance, but this issue is important, so we are going to discuss this particular issue in little bit more detail. Now, first of all, understand this particular thing, guys, that when we talk about the tenancy in India, this particular matter has multiple laws in the different state governments, because regulation of tenancy is a state subject. So different state governments had come out with the different laws. Now understand this particular thing. Basically, a little bit of a background I would like to give you. In 2020, when the lockdown was announced and when the reverse migration happened, okay, at that point of a time, one problem was discovered by the government, that is the lack of affordable and dignified housing in India. It was found that many a times dignified housing, affordable housing is not present, fine, and the migrants, they bear that burnt to the maximum extent. And government from the past few years is also trying to fulfill the dream of housing for all by 2022. Now therefore, guys, government has decided this particular thing, that in order to fulfill the housing for all by 2022, we also need to explore the rented accommodations. Now if I just give you little bit data to make the things understandable, then according to the census 2011, 1.1 crore houses were lying vacant in the country. 1.1 crore houses were lying vacant. People are not renting it out. If these houses could be rented out, then the people could get the suitable accommodation. Moreover, guys, the rentals are so much high also because there is the demand and supply problem. Demand for rental housings are much high, supply is not there. People simply don't want to give their houses onto the rent. Why? Because there are many concerns. For example, number one, that the tenant who will come, they will not keep the property in good condition, they will not carry the cleaning of the house and all such. Second, when they are needed to be removed, they might not remove, or they might not vacate the premises onto the time, they might not pay the rent. All these apprehensions are there into the minds of the landowners, and they are not comfortable in renting out the house. Is it clear or not? So therefore, the supply of the rental accommodations is not there, demand is very much high, rents are going up high. So therefore, now government of India proposed that one model tenancy law was proposed, and on the basis of this model tenancy law, the state governments can come out with their different laws, but the state governments had not come out with this. Now first of all, let's see the provisions of this model tenancy law. What were the provisions? So provisions were like this. First, it was provided that the verbal rent agreements are illegal. There needs to be a written rent agreement, so that if there is any dispute between the tenant and between the landlord, that particular thing can be resolved. Okay. Secondly, it was provided that the security deposits are to be capped at 2 months of the rent for the residential and maximum 6 months for the non-residential premises. Okay. Arbitrary and much higher security deposits cannot be taken. Then it was provided that the jurisdiction of civil courts will not be there onto the tenancy and tenancy related disputes. Now see, the civil courts, they have a lot of burden. If their court, if a case goes there, then for many years it will not be resolved. So the cases will not go to the civil court. I will tell you that what has happened in that particular place. Government decided that there will be the separate courts that will be created. Now these separate courts will take the tenancy related disputes so that they can be settled into the time bound manner. And guys, within the 60 days, every tenancy dispute is to be settled by these separate courts. Moreover, it was provided that no eviction of tenant will be there during the tenancy period. In force majeure, in any act of nature such as this pandemic, etc., the tenant can stay for a month. Moreover, guys, it was also provided that in order to enforce the tenancy laws, an independent authority will be established in the state. Okay, and this independent authority will be responsible for the registration of all the tenancy agreements, etc. Now it was provided further that, see, I told you that the landlords, they are not comfortable in renting their houses. So here a provision was provided that, see, if a landlord has fulfilled all the conditions stated into the rent agreement, he had given proper notice, if he has carried proper maintenance, everything, then guys, the landlord can give the notice to the tenant to vacate the premises. A particular time notice can be given, and if the tenant is not vacating the premises after the expiration of that particular period, then the landlord is entitled that he can double the monthly rent for 2 months, and after 2 months he can make the rent four times, and this particular rent has to be paid. If this rent is not being paid, and if even the tenant is not vacating the premises, then basically the court can be approached by the landlord. So basically, in this particular law, we find that the protection has been given to both the landlord as well as to tenant. Now this particular thing will increase the confidence in renting. Okay, so therefore this model tenancy law this model tenancy law was proposed by the central government. But as I told you that the tenancy is a state subject, central government can provide a model law. Copying that particular model law or getting inspired from that model law, the states have to make their own laws. And up till now, only the 4 states have done that particular thing. Is it clear or not? Fine. So as per the information that is there, the state governments of the Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, Assam has revised their tenancy acts onto the lines of the Model Tenancy Act. Okay, so this is something that should be done. Now moving to the next article. Okay, so the next article we have taken from the text and the context section, and it talks about the private sector boost into the India's space industry. Private sector boost into the India's space industry. Now this particular article we are going to see with respect to GS paper number 3, space sector reforms, science and technology, GS paper number 3. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that now what has happened, past year we have seen that the SpaceX, the space venture of Elon Musk. Okay, the SpaceX, it has launched its it has launched the commercial flight. Then guys, we also see that the Virgin is also working in this particular direction. Amazon is working, and they are exploring the possibility of launching the commercial space flights. Now because of this particular thing, we see that the 2022, it is a time when the space sector is witnessing what the IT sector witnessed in 1990s. So 1990s was an era when the IT sector skyrocketed, and the countries which leveraged their IT sector, they got a lot of benefit. For example, the USA. So today the space technology sector is a next promising arena, and India wants to leverage this particular thing. So guys, recently what had happened, the principal scientific advisor had provided this thing, that the government of India is working very seriously to leverage the space sector. Clear? Now what could be the benefits of leveraging the space sector for India? Let's see them one by one. Number one, if we leverage the space sector, then it will be very much beneficial to increase the connectivity, to combat the climate related problems, to deal with the climate related challenges. Fine. For example, the satellites, they can provide the crucial information onto the weather forecast. Okay, now these weather forecast as well as the climate change patterns, they can be very much important in order to identify the long term impact onto the soil, long term impact onto a particular region, the geographical phenomena that might be impacting the region. All these particular things can be known by the satellite information. Okay, so therefore guys, even the government can frame the long term policies as how the mitigation is to be done, how the development is to be carried. Let's say by the satellite information we get to know this particular thing, that XYZ state will see the declining water table in the coming 30-40 years. Okay, so therefore today beforehand we can take some effort. So regional, territorial, national policies could be made. More pragmatic, combative plans to deal with the future coming challenges can be made by the government, and these things will be benefiting the farmers, the people, everyone. Secondly, it has been provided that by the satellite information we can also deal the disaster management more properly. So early warning solutions can be prepared against the natural disasters. The information about earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, wildfires can be collected onto the real time. Okay, even in advance such kind of an information can be provided by the satellite imaging. So therefore it serves a lot of purpose. Secondly guys, in defense also, having a robust space sector, having the satellite system can provide crucial inputs, intelligence inputs. Moreover, the satellite communication can connect the unconnected villages. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that today when we talk about the regions of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, the interior regions, these are the regions where there is a lot of Naxalism, as well as the connectivity of these places is not there. So therefore connecting them, either we can establish the optic fiber network, but that thing will be having a lot of cost. And what could be a affordable solution? According to the World Economic Forum, it has been provided that the satellite communication, installing the satellite phones can connect 49% of the world's unconnected population. So right now 49% of the population in the world, they are unconnected. People living in Africa, people living in Latin America, all of them could be connected. Then further moving in this particular thing, guys, if we talk about exploring the potential of the space sector, you need to understand that the space sector cannot be developed in isolation. The space sector has to develop on basically has to develop in integration with the aerospace, IT sector and the telecom sector. So you need to develop the IT sector, the telecom sector, aerospace sector, and then only the space sector will be enhanced. It will be leveraged. So therefore, investments in all these particular arenas is needed immediately. Now, guys, when we talk about the size of the space sector in India, then it has been provided that India is the sixth largest player in the space sector. Guys, if I give you certain numbers, then in terms of the number of companies in the space sector, India has nearly India has nearly 4% of the world countries of the companies. Sorry, India has nearly 4% of the space sector companies. Fine. 4% of the space sector companies. Now, if you want to have the exact data, then around 3.6% of the space tech companies are there in India, but you can round it off to 4% and not at all a problem, because these points, etc., we might not be able to remember. But at the same time, India is having around 4%. When you see the USA is having around 56.4%. Okay, 56% of the space sector companies. So you see, okay, that USA is number one. The gap, even the second country, it is UK has just 6.5% of the space sector companies. So gap between the US and the second competitor UK, it is huge. And when we talk about the India, we are the sixth largest, but still we have just 3.6% of the space sector companies. When we talk about the potential revenue of this particular sector, today the space industry is valued at $7 billion, fine, 2019, and it aspires to grow to $50 billion by 2024. Fine, so there is a potential, fine, but government needs to carry the systemic interventions. Government need to provide the support. Now, when we talk about the India's space sector has one particular advantage which no other country is having. India's space initiatives are very much cost effective. For example, India has taken up the Mars orbiter mission. It was just a $75 million project that was there, much cheaper than what other countries are aspiring to. Now, guys, when we talk about the space sector, India has a lot of potential. India can leverage it, but government needs to increase the budget for the space sector. When we see the example of the USA's space budget is $41 billion, fine, and out of that $41 billion, $23.3 billion is just for NASA. When we talk about the India's space budget, it is 13,700 crore rupees, which is very, very less what could have been there. Guys, the capabilities of ISRO, they are huge. So on as the NASA is being provided the funding, if ISRO is provided the funding by the government of India, it can really scale. Now, in the past, government has taken certain reforms also for the space sector. Now, guys, understand this particular thing that in 2020, government came out with the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, and under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, the space sector liberalization were also done. Now, as the part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, government established the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center in space. Okay, this particular body, this particular institution was established. Now, what this particular body is all about? This particular body promotes, authorizes, and gives the licensing to the private players into the space arena. Is it clear or not? Moreover, this particular body also works as a regulatory body, supervisory body, fine, for the private players' participation into the space sector. Moreover, it also creates the mechanisms of providing the technology, expertise, fine, free of cost technologies to the non-government private entities. So to promote the private sector participation in space has been created as a designated authority. Moreover, there is one more body also, that is the New Space India Limited. Now, this New Space India Limited was actually established in 2019, and this particular body aims to transfer the matured technologies to the is developed by the ISRO to the private players. So the technologies, the demonstrators that have been developed by ISRO, they will be provided to private players at free of cost by this NSIL. So these are the initiatives that government has taken up. Fine. So I'll say that this particular article is a very, very good article, excellent written article with a lot of information. Directly you can use it in your answers of GS paper number 3 Science and Tech. Please, guys, download this particular PDF from the Telegram, this entire PDF, and please directly attach it in your GS paper number 3 science and tech space sector notes. Now let's move to the next article. The latest guidelines on arrest and bail order. This is one article. The latest guidelines on arrest and bail order. This particular article has been from the text and the context section. And then on the similar topic, there is the editorial in the editorial page. Reform bail law but make the right diagnosis first. So reforming the bail law and the latest guidelines onto the arrest and bails, they are the similar articles. So we will club them together and we will see that what this particular issue is all about. Now this particular topic, it is going to be important for our GS paper number 2. It is going to be important for GS paper number 2, criminal justice reforms, criminal justice system reforms. Okay, now in case if you don't know what do we understand by criminal justice system, so guys, there are the three wings that are to be reformed under the criminal justice system. Number one is investigation. Number one is the investigation. Second is the judiciary, and third is the prisons. Prison. So prison, judiciary, and investigation by police, all this comes under the criminal justice system. Okay, and the reforms at these three levels are called as the criminal justice system reforms. The police reforms, they come into the criminal justice system reform. The prison reforms, reducing the occupancy into the prisons, all these things will come here. Now, first of all, before going in this particular article, let's see the context that why these particular articles are coming in the newspaper. So what has happened recently, the Supreme Court in one of a judgment, that is the Satendra Kumar Antil judgment. Fine. Supreme Court provided this particular thing that India needs to have a bail law. Why? Because in India we practice the principle that the bail needs to be the norm and the jail should be the exception. So in India, what we practice, bail should be norm, bail should be given in every case, and the jail should be an exception. Only into the rare case the jail should be given. But rather opposite is happening. What is happening? Jail is being made as a norm. In every case, people are being put into the jail, and the bail is being just given in an exception condition. Okay, so this is something that is happening. So India needs the bail reform. India needs the bail reform. Even the Chief Justice of India provided this particular thing that India, now the time has come that India should not become a police state. India needs to go for the criminal justice reform. What reform? The reform particularly for the bail. So at two separate occasions, the same thing has been talked about. Now guys, let's discuss the issues surrounding the bail and what should be done. So guys, first of all, when we talk about this Satendra Kumar Antil judgment, by the way, if you are following the newspaper analysis regularly, yesterday also there was one article where this Satendra Kumar Antil judgment we have discussed. And moreover guys, I'll again say this particular thing that please make sure that every day you are following the newspaper, whatever you are comfortable. If you are in video, do that. If you are in reading the newspaper, do that. But follow newspaper every day. Now okay, the Supreme Court has provided in this Satendra Kumar Antil judgment that we need to make sure that the bail are being given as a rule and unnecessarily arrest as well as unnecessary bail should not be denied. Here the Supreme Court has also provided this particular thing that the section number 41 and section number 41A of the Code of Criminal Procedure CRPC is to be used by the police officers before arresting a person, before putting a person in the jail. Now first of all, what are these section 41 and section 41A of the CRPC? Now section 41A provides that, now section 41 deals with the cases where the arrest can be made by a police officer without a warrant. So here it has been provided that whenever arrest is being made by the police officer without a warrant, then the police officer also needs to record the reasons that why he had made the arrest, Clear? Fine. What was there that he simply did not, okay, what was the condition? Just a minute. What was the condition that he did not pursued with the non-arrest? Why the arrest has been made? He has to give specifically the reason. Then the next is the section number 41A. Now section number 41A provides this particular thing that before arresting a person, notice has to be sent by an investigating agencies to a person. Now sometimes, most of the times what is happening, they are not sending the notice directly, they are arresting. So therefore the Supreme Court had said that the section 41 and 41A should be followed now more rigorously by the police officers and arrest should not be made. Now understand this particular thing guys, that today if we see the data from the National Crime Record Bureau, the under trials their population is increasing. Today around 75%, and to be very precise 76% of the prisoners, they are the under trials. It means they are those people who are there in the jail but their crime has not been proved. Okay, so these are the under trials. Then guys, it has been provided that, see, because of so many of the under trials are there, so many of the people are there in the jail, occupancy rate in the prisons have been increased. Around 118% occupancy rate is there in the prisons. Okay, so it means that whatever their capacity is, beyond their capacity, the prisoners are lodged there. It simply means that there are unsanitary conditions, there are unhygienic conditions, basic accommodation are not provided there. So this is something that is there. So in order to reduce this occupancy rate, in order to reduce these under trial numbers in India, we need to go for the bail reforms. Now if we see what are the reasons that the bail is being denied, there are some systemic structural problems that are there. Understand this particular thing, guys. Basically the law provides that the arrest of a person is justified when arresting a person is necessary. Now this particular thing is very much vague. Now police justify this particular thing that arresting a person was necessary because police say that the person will not come back if we don't arrest him. Now what is the reason that such kind of a thing is done? See this particular thing. Sometimes the people who are being arrested, they are the migrants, or they are the people without any asset. Without assets mean they don't have any house, they don't have any property, or there are certain people who don't have any contact with the family. So police says that if these migrants will not be arrested, if these people without the assets, without the house, or without the contact with the family will not be arrested, how we will catch them back again? If we need to call them into the court, they will not come. So therefore we are arresting them directly. Now guys, according to the data by the Fair Trial Program, which has analyzed the data of the Yerwada and the Nagpur Central Prison, they provided this particular thing that out of the under trials people that are there, 18.5% are the migrants. 18.5% are the migrants, 93.5% people are the ones who don't have any assets, 62.2% people are the ones who don't have any contact with the family, and just 10% people are there who had the previous incarceration. Incarceration means the ones who were earlier in the jail. So guys, see, majority of people are just being arrested because they don't have any property, because they don't have any asset. Now this is something which is wrong. What it means? It means the poor people are being put into the jail. Here the socio-economic inequality come into the place. The poor person is putting into the jail. If a person is rich, he can afford the bail. This is something which is there. Now the article says that the Supreme Court has repeatedly said this particular thing. Supreme Court had repeatedly said this particular thing, that the bail needs to be a condition. Now guys, when we talk about whether the bail is to be given or not, actually the courts, the lower courts, the district courts, session courts, etc., they have their discretion to decide that where the bail will be given and where the bail will be rejected. Supreme Court has provided that okay, you have discretion, but there are certain principles that are to be adhered before rejecting a bail. You need to specifically give the reason that why the bail is being rejected. But what happens? Courts, they reject the bail and they do not give any reasons that why the bail has been rejected. Is it clear or not? This is something that is happening. Now because of this particular thing, there are large number of under trials who are there into the jail. Sometimes the bail is given, but a lot of conditions are put onto the bail. For example guys, there are the surety bonds, guarantees are to be given. For example, you have to furnish a guarantee. Okay, now the guarantee could be in monetary terms, guarantee could be of a, now see, for example, you have to show the property documents that okay, this is a guarantee that I am giving. All these particular thing is there. But poor people, they don't have houses, they don't have car, they don't have monetary money to give the monetary bond. How they will do this particular thing? So sometimes what happen, the court passes an order that okay, Mr. X is being given the bail, but actually in order to get this particular bail, he has to furnish a bond, a surety bond. It means some backing, some guarantees to be given, guarantee in terms of property papers, etc. But the person is not having. So even the bail has been given, still he will continue into the jail. So therefore it has been said that in India, the bail system is working on a flawed assumption that every arrested person will be propertied, will be having the money, will be having the social connections by which he can arrange such kind of a guarantee. But no, that is not the case for the poor people, for the migrant people. So therefore we need to bring some deep structural reforms in this particular direction. Okay, Then now moving on. Okay, so there is a question, sir. Rejection or delaying of bail, is it violation of any fundamental right? See this particular thing. There is article number 21, right to life and personal liberty. Now personal liberty is being restricted when a person is put into the jail when he is in under a trial. Are you getting it or not? Then moving on. A global order caught up in a swirl of chaos. Okay, so this particular article, guys, just article is talking about some trends that are unfolding into the global politics. Fine. So with respect to the GS paper number 2, international affairs, we can understand this particular article. However, the article is little bit abstract. It is just pointing about that, okay, how in the global politics some changes are coming. Fine. So some concrete thing is not there. Article is little bit abstract. Now let's discuss what is the crux of this particular article. Article is saying that recently we have witnessed the Russia-Ukraine conflict that is going on. And Russia-Ukraine conflict is a major theme in the changing global politics. But it is not the only thing. There are many challenges in the global politics, many challenges into the world order that are there. Now, number one, it is being said that first of all, today we see the Europe, it appears aimless. Europe appears that it doesn't have any particular direction. What has happened? The Russia-Ukraine crisis that has come. Europe is now in a fix. Either they have to choose the US or they have to choose the Russia. But in that particular capacity, what they have done, they have chosen the West and they have put the sanctions onto the Russia. But they are very much dependent onto the Russia, particularly for the natural gas, particularly for the wheat, food grains, etc. Now, after abandoning the Russia, whether they have made the right choice or not, there is no clue for that particular thing. Europe is right now aimless. Find the basically complications for Europe has been increased because of this Russia-Ukraine war that is going on. Fine. The cost of energy has increased. There is a food shortage. There is a fertilizer shortage that is there because obviously for this they were dependent on Russia. The next thing that has been provided here is that basically apart from this, then many other countries also are facing some another kind of problems. For example, the foreign exchange crisis. We have seen it in the Sri Lanka. Then the Pakistan, our neighbor, they are also is in a situation where there could also be a foreign exchange crisis in the coming time. And then many other countries in the world are there who are facing the challenge of the foreign exchange crisis. Now this particular challenge was there earlier also, but it has now been aggravated because of this Russia-Ukraine war. Then the next thing is there that what has happened, the instruments have been employed by the West against the Russia. On Russia, large number of sanctions have been put. Now the USA thinks that by putting the sanctions onto the Russia, they are trying to control the Russia, but these sanctions are having much more implications. The world is very much dependent onto the Russia, and by this particular thing, what will happen? There will be some other crisis that will be developing onto the world countries because they are dependent on Russia. So therefore, it has been said that actually putting the sanction, it is an error of judgment. If the Russia will be isolated, there is one more challenge also. What will happen? Russia will go close to the China as it is happening, and the Russia-China nexus will prove little bit more detrimental to the West. So isolating Russia, it will bring some economical problems. Isolating Russia will make Russia go more closer to China, which will be a very big challenge. Moreover, guys, understand this particular thing that the China is now also growing influence into the Pacific region. Fine. It is creating the alliances, and in that thing, the West is going to suffer. Now see, the West, it is developing the coalitions, particularly the USA. For example, the AUKUS, Australia, UK, USA, Quad, US, India, Australia, Japan. Then guys, USA had come out with a new initiative, that is the Partners in the Blue Pacific. In this initiative, Partners in the Blue Pacific, USA is there, UK is there, Australia, New Zealand, Japan is there. Now the USA is trying to control the region of Indo-Pacific. Why? Because in Indo-Pacific, it wants to contain China. Okay, so all these particular initiatives are being brought. Fine, it shows the desperation of the USA, but China is becoming more emboldened by the Russia's support that it is now getting. Now basically it has been said that India cannot ignore the situation which will be developed between the Russia and China if they both will go together, because we see China, we don't have very good relations, particularly after the 2020 when the Galwan Valley crisis, when the LAC issue happened. We don't have very good relations with China, and if West will contain Russia will go near to the China, and China will be further emboldened. Clear? Russia is India's trusted friend, so India needs to play an important role here. Now apart from dealing with the challenge of China, India needs to deal with the other problems also that are there into the neighborhood. For example, we need to come at the at certain terms with the Taliban. Now the Taliban has captured the power with the Taliban, which has captured the power into the Afghanistan. Fine. Then we also need to tackle that how the Sri Lankan challenge that has been there, it can be handled, because if there will be instability into the Sri Lanka, then the spillover effects in India will also be coming. Then we also need to see that how in the other extended neighborhood of India the stability and the peace can be brought. Moreover, understand this particular thing, that in 2020 the Donald Trump successfully managed to establish the Abraham Accords. Now, what were the Abraham Accords? Abraham Accord was an agreement by which the diplomatic relations were established between the UAE, Israel and Bahrain. By this particular thing, we now find that there is some kind of a stability that is coming into the region. But guys, even the USA's relations with the Arab nation, West Asia, they are becoming little bit weak. Though Abraham Accord was a success for the USA, by which it created a good image into the West Asia. But on the whole, the USA's relation with the West Asia are declining, and China is making a space here. Russia is making a space here. So here also certain attention is to be paid. So this is, guys, all the issues that how the global world order is changing. These things have been provided. I hope that you have understood it. And now we'll move to the next article. Now, backsliding on climate action. So this particular article will see with respect to the GS paper number 3, environment and ecology, climate change, conservation, etc. Now understand, basically what this article is talking about. This article is saying that how the countries are now backtracking, countries are now backflipping on the climate agreements, onto the climate targets, okay, that they have taken. Now, for example, in this particular direction, in 2015, Paris Pledge was taken by the countries. In 2015, Paris Pledge was taken by the countries. In 2021, there was the COP26 that was hosted, fine, in the Glasgow. In COP26 in 2015 Paris, many of the climate targets have been taken, but now the countries are going back. For example, now we find this particular thing, that coal exports are surging in the Europe. Now Europe is using more coal. Europe earlier said that we are going to achieve the carbon neutrality by 2050, okay, but now they are becoming more dependent on the coal. And why they are doing this particular thing? It is because now they say that from coal we have to transition from natural gas, and from natural gas we have to transition from renewable energy. But natural gas was coming from the Russia, and now because of the Russia-Ukraine war, we are not going to trade with the Russia, and therefore in order to uphold our energy security, now we have to use the coal. So they are justifying the use of the coal now. Moreover, guys, into the longer term, European Union also had planned to reduce the natural gas consumption by 15%, but now they are even going back on this particular thing also. They are trying to reject it. So therefore the focus on renewable is getting compromised. USA also has, basically it looks that it is going back. Why? Because, guys, see, USA, it has a very big industry of oil and gas. Oil and gas are the major export items of the USA also. So now what happened, USA wants to gain back their economic power, okay. So for that particular thing, they will leverage their oil and gas lobby, okay. Now the USA is recalibrating the USA's policy towards the Gulf. Further, this particular thing, right now we see that there are skyrocketing energy prices which are threatening the governments. Even in India, we see that the oil and gas prices are going very much high. Fine. So therefore, basically the countries also, they are considering the cheaper alternatives. Now the article says that India, it is dependent on to the India, that India needs to fight that whatever the climate targets have been taken, they should be kept intact. Now, guys, understand this particular thing, that when the COP26 happened, India was criticized by the world countries. Why? Because India said that we are going to phase down the coal. India did not said that we are going to phase out. So phase down and phase out. Phase out means completely we will abandon the coal. Phase down means that we will reduce the consumption, but still the coal will be used. So when India said that we will be going on phase down, then India was criticized, because it was said that you should have talked about the phase out. But now the world countries, even they are increasing the coal usage. So this is a double standard of the world countries. Now it has been said that the developed world, fine, they are not going to adhere to their Paris agreements. Now therefore it is the responsibility of the developing world, particularly the India, that they should do everything to hold the countries, the developed countries, accountable, that whatever targets they have taken, they have to fulfill that particular thing. If they will not fulfill the targets, the temperature rise above 2 degrees Celsius will happen, and then there will be a lot of complexities, there will be a lot of crises that are going to come. So when we talk about Paris Agreement has used one particular term, that is the global peaking. Now what is the global peaking? Global peaking, it means a particular point when the carbon emissions will reach its peak, because after reaching the peak then they will come down. So we want to achieve this global peaking as early as possible, and after that we need to reduce our carbon emissions. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the reducing carbon emission, the countries are taking one particular target, that is the carbon neutrality, net zero. They say that different timelines have been taken. For example, India had taken a timeline of 2070. By 2070, India says that will become carbon neutral. It means that whatever carbon we are releasing, the same carbon we will absorb. Now it has been said that now the time is not there that every specific country's carbon neutrality is to be seen. Rather, we need to achieve the global net zero. The entire world needs to become carbon neutral. Okay, and how this particular thing will happen? You don't need to go by the individual net zero. Rather, the developing countries, देखो अभी क्या होगा, if we need to achieve the global net zero, it means that the entire world's emission needs to become zero. Obviously, all the countries cannot do this particular thing together. Developing countries will take more time. So therefore, to compensate that particular thing, the developed countries need to reach their carbon neutrality even before 2050, by 2030 or by 2035 maximum. So therefore, today, in order to make sure that the global net zero happens, developed countries need to reach net zero before the 2050. Okay, and in this particular capacity, the India, the developing country, happens to be a hope that they will make sure that such kind of thing is being done. So renewable focus, the focus on renewable needs to be again brought back into the center, again needs to be brought back into the limelight, and first developed countries need to do that particular thing, and India has a responsibility that India will make sure that the developed world adhere to their promises. Now the next COP, Conference of Parties 27, will held into the Egypt, and in Egypt it is India's responsibility that India needs to hold the accountability of the developed world. So this is about it, and now we'll move to the next article. Okay, so this particular article, it talks about the medical tests for pilot license recognize trans persons. Okay, now see, you don't need to go too much into the detail, but guys, if you remember, few days back we have discussed this particular issue, that how the social discriminations, how the systemic discriminations against the transgender people are existing. I had given you an entire background of this entire issue. Clear, few days back we have already seen. Now guys, just few things I would like to wrap up here, few things I would like to recap. See, when we talk about a very important judgment, that is the Navtej Singh Johar case, and then there was a Nalsa judgment. Okay, now the Nalsa judgment and Navtej Singh Johar judgment, they are very much important for the rights of the transgender people. Particularly into the Nalsa judgment of 2014, it was provided that the transgender people should not be discriminated on any ground. Even in the Nalsa judgment, it was provided that India needs to come out with a law to protect the transgender people from any kind of a discrimination, and therefore the Transgender Act was already passed in 2019. Now, Transgender Act provided that equal opportunities are to be provided to the transgender people. Okay, this is something that is happening. Now guys, when we talk about the transgender people, still we find that the discriminations have been there. So there was one issue of one trans person who applied for the license for the pilot, but he was denied that particular license. Why? Because it was said that he was undergoing a hormone therapy. Now it was said that basically it was not seen that what is the medical ground behind that. Just simply the person was shunned, that the person will not be given the license. So this trans person was denied. Now therefore it has been provided this thing, DGC, then the Ministry of Social Justice reprimanded the DGC, and it was provided that no such kind of incident should happen. A trans person now will be issued the license if he is fit onto the basis of medical assessment, if there is no associated medical issues, if there is no psychiatric issues, if there is no psychological conditions, a trans person will be provided the license. He cannot be denied. Earlier he was denied because he was going through a hormone therapy. Now it has been provided that there is no restriction onto the transgender people from applying to the commercial pilot license, even they are going the hormone replacement therapy. It is not a disqualifying condition as earlier it has happened. Now guys, this particular thing is rectified finally the trans people are being given their rights as envisaged under the Transgender Act, as envisaged by the Nalsa judgment and Navtej Singh Johar judgment. But this entire thing happened when it turned into a controversy. This thing happened when Ministry of Social Justice has to intervene. Now guys, this is not the correct thing. We need to give their due without such kind of interferences. Is it clear? So therefore there is a need to change the attitude and understand this one particular thing. I am giving you one particular reference. There are the Yogya Karta guidelines. There are the Yogya Karta guidelines. Now the Yogya Karta guidelines provide this particular thing that all the rights in letter as well as spirit are to be given to the transgender people. So now the time has come that the Yogya Karta guidelines are to be followed in letter as well as spirit. So please use this particular keyword in your answers if there is an answer, there is a question on this kind of a thing. So that is all guys about this particular issue, and with this we come to an end to the today's newspaper analysis. So guys, now we'll be meeting tomorrow. Till then guys, please take care of yourselves, and if you have liked the video, if you have liked it, please do hit the like button, please do leave your comment. Fine. So now we'll meet tomorrow. Till then, please take care of yourselves and please keep on revising. Fine. Thank you so much.